Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. It's time for some NFL breakdown, which is great. I wish it was I could give it all my focus and attention. Thankfully, we can put Wimbledon behind us pretty soon. And thankfully, the Tour de France is probably over. So we can get to Olympics in football here in short order. Euro may be over.
Tough Euros, I don't know. We'll see. Oh, it could be if England, because England has the defense and the willingness to put a lineup together to really make a boring final. If they do prevail over the Dutch tomorrow, Argentina and Canada going at it, big favorites, the Argentines. Okay. And then one more Copa tomorrow. What is it?
Uruguay, Colombia. Yeah, really good one.
That'll be a good one. But yes, we are into football. We are going to start with the
real football.
NFC South. If you're unfamiliar with these, if you've never watched our previews, we'll do a division per week. If you're listening to this as a podcast, it is just the Panthers. But when we do it live on the YouTube, we're going to do two teams at a time. We're going to rip out, give 2 straight hours of this for the most part. And if you listen to any of the shows preceding this one this year, we're going to change it up. We want to talk a little more about the process of making the numbers, using the ratings. We spent like a half hour doing an on-air kind of meeting last week where we're talking about like, what should we use for this? How complicated do we want to get it? And even that turned out to be this is going to be a work in progress all summer. Where some of these numbers I'm going to have to go back and, recalibrate based on things I'm figuring out. Mm-hmm. So this one might be a little rough.
Yeah,
because we're still kind of figuring out the new process. But
that's why we picked the 2 shittiest teams in the NFL, Andy. This is the two teams that I think have. Wait, let me take it back. I think we picked 2 teams that have among the least to say about who will be crowning a champion in 2024 or 2025 NFL. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we talked a little off air too about this. We've divided it up into 8 ratings per team, trying to get the best way to judge a team. And obviously, we talked a little about the weighting to it. They're not all weighted the same, but we are going to rate.
We'll get into look. This is the preseason.
Yeah, we'll talk about the.
We're in the preseason later. Of the preview pods. We'll figure this out as we go. We will unveil some schedules. And hey, by the way, thank you to those of you in the chat. We appreciate you joining us live. You guys fucking rock. And as a memento to my appreciation, as soon as we wrap this pod, we will upload all of the schedule graphics to the Deep Dive Discord as a thank you for your patronage of our awesome podcast and YouTube show. With that, Charles, yes, is right. Charles says the story of the NFL in 2023-24 cannot be told without the Carolina Panthers. And that's true because they were the worst team. They had the worst record, and they shipped their first overall pick to the Chicago Bears to potentially change the direction of the franchise that lives on the lake up in Chicago. Okay, let's talk about the Panthers for real. Let's start with like a little bit of our traditional, like just your postmortem about last season. We don't need to go through and talk about everything. Like they pretty clearly, obviously stepped in a giant pile of dog shit drafting Bryce Young. At least at face value.
Put yourself into 2023 July, Drew.
Yes.
Where we'd had this, we didn't know, where we were going to be at with certainly not Stroud, but we weren't, in the dark, terrible place we are now with, with Bryce Young.
Correct.
There was hope, hope springs eternal. My God, if you want to do some fun preview, kind of research throughout the next couple months, go find YouTube videos, these 10-15 minute, 15-minute YouTube videos that are made by the guys that do content just for that team. Because if you do that, there's about 50 wins per division. Every
Sure.
one of them is like so rosy. I kind of want to go find some from last year about Bryce and how excited they were. But yeah, like Drew said, they stepped in it big, not only missing out on the number one pick this year, but having, just a horrific year offensively. Reich was a guy we liked. He was gone after 10 games. It never, there's a lot of turmoil.
Liked is a strong word.
Oh, are we gonna revisionist this?
Well, I mean, it seemed reasonable, right? He was a retread, right? But he didn't really ever accomplish anything in Indy, and it was like, okay, this is interesting. And he honestly, I thought he put together a really nice staff. If he wanted to say we had any glowing opinion about Reich, it was that, like, dude, he got a good D coordinator. It seemed like he was going to bring in some people with some new innovative ideas offensively. It was a shit show from Jump Street, and they were the last team to get a win, as it took them to week 7 when they beat the Houston Texans. Extremely lucky win, if we're being honest with ourselves. Actually, that was their first cover of the season.
It was right at the end.
Yes, they did. They failed to cover their first 6 games, and honestly, like, the hope that we came into any kind of gloss, any kind of optimism about the Panthers heading into 2023 was that they got some good young pieces on defense and a good D coordinator. If they can, like, if they get anything out of Bryce Young, and maybe they can win some games 17-14, and they couldn't because they couldn't get to 14, let alone 17 in a lot of cases. And the reason is their offensive line took a massive step back. And in order to get the number 1 pick to take Bryce Young, they traded away their only good
Moore,
skill position player. Yes. So
Adam Thielen has a good place in my heart because it's a fun story how he made it into the league, kind of walking onto one of those tryout camps, after playing for like Mankato State. But man, he's washed. And you go look at his stats. He put up a lot of stats by like attrition because
volume was there. Yeah.
He was never open, but he was still good enough to, make some contested catches in game states where they were throwing quite a bit. Like you said, Bryce's offensive line was a really big letdown. The defense was something we were hopeful for. Didn't really materialize like we saw, like we were hoping for. Burns was good. Brown is good. But other than that, you get these injuries. You get how many games has Horn?
Did he play 6?
Yeah, I'm just thinking over his career. It feels like 6 is like his run rate. It feels like he plays about 10 per season. So
his run rate. Look at us.
Talking cricket. But the disappointing kind of on all fronts. Like those 2 wins were both right at the end of the game, I feel like. So it was one of those 2 where you go look at their Pythag and it said they should have won more games. Mm-hmm. That's just how it works when a team is that far down on the spectrum, because teams generally win 3 or 4 games, even if they're really bad. So I don't know if I want to put much stock into that because they truly were that bad. We watched them at times. There just weren't a lot of bright spots. The coaching change is, I don't know. That's
okay. Well, let me kind of go one more kind of just general thought. Yeah, you're to close the loop on you on Bryce. I mean, on JC Horn. Oops, they probably should have taken Pat Surtain. He has played 22 games in 3 seasons, including the 6 he had last year, and he has not lived up to the expectations of the draft pedigree. And I do not know if he will be a long-term fit there. The Panthers were under darlings last year. They were 5-10-1 to the under over the balance of the season, even though they went into their bye conceding 42 points to the Lions and 42 points to the Dolphins. My narrative kind of most memorable moment was coming out of the bye, believing that the Texans had, or that they had some kind of fix in place for this Texans game. They eked it out in very lucky fashion. And at that point, it was literally just, okay, pull the ripcord. This team's done. It's not happening. They proceeded to score 13, 10, and 18 in their next 5 games, which they all lost.
I don't think they scored in the last 2 weeks.
Their only kind of scoring output was the big 30-point loss to the Green Bay Packers, where they covered. And yes, they got shut out their final 2 weeks of the season. So there is not a lot that you can say about their offense in terms of figuring themselves out. But I did think there were some bright spots with the the defense and just in general. Ajero Evero's kind of coordinating coming out of the bye. So I don't know. That's the best I can say. This team stunk, and they gave away their first overall pick, and they drafted kind of recklessly again. So yeah, what did you think of their offseason?
These are so hard to judge when a team has so many needs and uncertainty at the most important position, uncertainty at the most important position on the sideline. Where you're bringing in a new coach, you're bringing in new, a coach/coordinator at this point, somebody who rose through the ranks pretty quickly. And I think that's my biggest question mark here. Outside of just, hey, will these new guards work out? Will that fix the offensive line? Is, Johnson's Deontay, is that a legit wide receiver one? Is that going to matter? Are they going to be able to get more out of Bryce Young now that he has, maybe the rookie skitters are kind of gone? Is this defense going to perform at a slightly better level, even though they did lose some pieces because they're keeping the continuity of the defensive coordinator? The biggest question mark is probably is Canales the music man or, the magic man? These stops have been short-lived, and we've seen a lot of success. Gino, had his year, and Baker had his year, and he gets people paid, but, kind of got to see it for a little bit longer before we just dub this guy the quarterback whisperer. And this is obviously, a huge, huge test with diminutive, didn't really play well, still probably doesn't have the best offensive line ahead of him, doesn't have the best skill position players, and you're introducing another new system. So yeah, and then the Leggett thing. Leggett has some injuries coming in. They drafted they drafted another running back, which I like him, but he's another one that's coming off an injury. What was the other one? They drafted the tight end.
Yeah.
It was like every move they made was okay. None of them were like, oh, that was such a fucked up move. It's like everything was like, all right, you have so many needs. You're not going to pay Burns. You might as well just take what you can get for him. It sucked because somebody offered you a lot more a while ago, but it's, sunk cost. What are you going to do? You kept some guys. You tried to backfill a little in the pass rush, and you probably upgraded, your coaching staff. So I think it was a good offseason, but it's one of those things where whenever there's a really bad team with tons and tons of needs, you have to just be like, oh, they filled half of them. That's good. Because every move they make is like, oh, that was a move that filled a need. Well, they had 50 needs. Of course they were. So it was, I'm not hopeful. When I looked at my ratings and I put everything together, it's like, oh, it's probably still still a bottom 5 team for sure.
I think it's a bottom 2 team for sure.
I have and this is, when we talked about this the other week, when we started putting our ratings together, I thought a little bit about it because a lot of it was quantitative. A lot of it was based on ratings. A lot of it was based off trying to put some decay to last year's EPA, success rate, pass rush, pass fly, any stats I could find, and trying to use those forward looking. But at the same time, I had to kind of look at it, and it's like there's a range to it. And where should I put this rating in the range, knowing that after 3 or 4 games, we're going to know a lot more about this team. And I think a lot of my Panther ratings have arrows to the up where it's like, hey, this could go up. I kind of, by default, I put a lot of the ratings at the lower part of the range, just knowing okay, hey, you got some guards, and that's great.
Okay. So here's my 2 cents in the offseason, and I'm not trying to be overly harsh. I didn't think it was very good. With a couple exceptions. But that's probably fine, right? Who is available and where their needs were didn't really fit, right? They weren't going to go out and get Justin Jefferson to solve their skill position deficit, right? They weren't going to really get a difference maker better than Deontay Johnson. I don't think Deontay Johnson is a difference maker personally. If he surprises to the good, great. But I feel like his bright light feels a bit behind for me, just from what I've seen from him in Pittsburgh last handful of years. So I don't know that they necessarily bought somebody on the come up there. Similarly, like just across the board personnel wise, like Jadeveon Clowney. Okay. That feels like a stopgap at best. Like that's not like really taking swings on young players that you're going to be able to develop. But like so all of the personnel moves, they move on from Brian Burns after not trading him for what would have been a lot better of a haul. They move on from Von Bell, which I didn't totally love. They move on from DJ Chark, who I thought was perfectly fine considering how little there was talent-wise on that skill position group. I kind of didn't understand the personnel moves. Now that's where I'll draw the line.
This is where I'm at. I'm at with Patrick. Like I'm not like excited about Deontay Johnson.
So you moved from the 32nd to the 30th. Like it's not a big move up, but here's where that's kind of the personnel side of things I thought was a little bit of a flop. But what were they going to do? Like, how are you going to address all the glaring needs with what was available in free agency? You would have just been throwing money into a fire, right? Shoveling money right into the fire. Like at this point, they just have to head down, draft, develop. And presumably the hire they made in Dave Canales, decent chance to get some developmental bump out of him, out of the most important piece that you made a gamble on, and Bryce Young. No clue if it will work out. Like I do not see on the tape something that says Bryce Young has a couple fixable. There were some teachable moments on the tape. There were some things you can clean up about his game. Like I just didn't see anything. And so I don't know if that was an incomplete or if it's like kind of a true signal that he needs to, they need to move on from him. But what I did like for what it's worth, like I'm perfectly fine rolling the dice on Dan Morgan. Dan Morgan did something smart. He hired Eric Eager. Like that seems like that's probably a good thing. And so excited to see if they can, if he can come in and really change the direction of the franchise from an analytics and decision-making standpoint. Just cool that they would be open to that anyway. Like that's a positive sign. And yeah, Dave Canales did some awesome things last year. And I think Dave Canales deserves as much of the credit for the Buccaneers' success as anyone in the room, certainly more than Todd Bowles should get.
The more I look at the rest of the people that were there,
yeah. So, Ajero Evero sticking around is interesting to me. I like continuing to try to develop the pieces you have on the defensive side of the ball, who are there.
To be fair,
yeah,
he did interview for 3 different head coaching positions. He just didn't get any. Like that feels like a rental at this point too. Where if he's
Canales?
still hot, no, Evero.
Evero. Okay.
Yeah, Evero wanted to move on. Well, Sorry. I mean, one of the positions he did interview for was Carolina. So if he's still a hot name, he'll be interviewing again next year, especially if they get something out of this defense. But yeah, the Canales thing was the only one where I went to the higher end of the range, where until I'm proven wrong, I have to assume he is a good offensive mind who got the most out of, some maybe lesser than talents as far as, offenses as a whole. But at the same time, Seattle had some pretty good wide receivers. Baker Mayfield is a pretty high draft pick. Like you can't just say, he took a bunch of shit and molded it into a trophy. Like he did have something to work with. Then that's why I'm saying this will be much, much harder when, this is by far your worst quarterback you're going to work with, by far the worst offensive line, by far the worst skill position group. So he's the furthest away from getting it to, the level that he had in Seattle 2 years ago.
Hey, that's okay. That doesn't, that kind
no,
of doesn't
you
really,
want to draft high. You
really
have
matter.
your first rounder next year.
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, you right. And that's, so I think like the mission is pretty clear. Like there's not really pressure for this group to win this year, right? The mission is clear. Like develop these guys, give us, you don't have skin. No, none of these guys have skin. I can't believe that they hired Canales because he sat in the room and he banged on the table, was like, Bryce Young, I can fix him. This is I think everybody has a clean slate here. And it's like, we're gonna evaluate this with eyes wide open. If he doesn't have it, we're moving on. That's kind of the hiring of Eager was kind of the signal there for me, I think, which is that hey, we're gonna swing away on draft choices.
Money on analytics is
they're trying to instill a culture that is long-term winning, and this year is going to be clearly understand who we have in terms of talent, who we need to keep around, who we need to build around, who where we need to invest in our resources to really fortify this team next year. And presumably, if they get good season, like the big questions for me is like, if you get a really good season out of Derek Brown, who should pop based on age and pedigree and what we've seen from him to this point, like, what can you get for him, right? Do you trade him? Like, or and so that I think that's kind of where you're at with a lot of like the youngish guys on this roster. Maybe JC Horn fits that profile too. Although if he pops this year, then you lock him down and you hope he just stays healthy, I guess. But there are a lot of
successful history of that. I don't know if he stays healthy for 16 and he's good 17. Maybe you do trade him. And Brown is like, just looking at who's on this roster, unless Jadeveon Clowney at like age 32. How old is Clowney? He's on the other side of 30.
A million.
He had a good year last year. But like asking him to continue to replicate that at this age, like,
dude, he played for Steve Spurrier.
Yeah, that's fair. That was, God, do you remember the ball don't lie moment?
I do.
He just murdered that guy.
That is his enduring legacy, if we're being honest. Yeah, he's 31.
That's up there with the Sean Taylor hit in the Pro Bowl is like my favorite hard hit plays. We're not allowed to have the you got jacked up segment anymore because of injuries. But no, Brown's probably at the end of the year. Wouldn't be surprised me if you looked at PFF or other rating systems and Brown was their highest rated player on the team. He's very good.
I kind of would expect that, honestly.
Yeah, that should be how you end up, and it would be good at the same time because I don't know. It would mean you're failing. It means teams are running against you because he's going to put up good run stop numbers. Yeah, and this is the other thing too. Patrick Clowney might mail it in if they're not
from Rock Hill, South Carolina. He's finally home.
He is
sleeping in his own bed.
Yeah, how'd that work for Icky? He's not good. Yeah, it's not a good team. Clowney has been known to be inconsistent at times, so I'm not super jazzed for anything on this team. My highest rating.
Okay, let's go. Give me to him. Give me him top to bottom now. Just shoot me your ratings. Go.
Look, I was wondering how you want to do that. Do we want to just talk quickly about one of the 8 and then give a ratings?
Me and you hit me with what you've thought through, and I will tell you I'll just tell you what mine is, and we can kind of parse where we disagree.
QB/OC.
Yeah, where are you at?
1.5.
Ooh, I'm more bullish than you. I'm at 2.5. Okay.
Yeah,
this is low, one, man. Oh my goodness,
this is one where I know I wondered because I said. So I put Canales in the coaching part. I think I do need to bring this up a little if I'm heavy on Canales because he is your play caller. So their offensive coordinator is Isaac, who's another Nepo kid.
He came along with him though. He was the wide receiver coach in Seattle and in the wide receiver coach in Tampa, right?
Yeah, his dad was like an assistant GM. His grandpa was in the league. Like I think he was a wide receiver at Wake. That's all I could find on him was people have said he's been an instrumental part in helping to develop wide receiver rooms. So maybe that bodes well for like Leggett or some of these other receivers that we aren't really rating highly and the offense in general. But Canales is the play caller. That'll be interesting. So I'm willing to go a little higher on that. But at the same time, there's a decent chance that, despite the almost certain fact that Bryce will be a little better, that his ceiling is just so low.
Yeah. So, what would you have graded them last year retroactively? Worse than 1.5? Like, are you expecting a step up at all?
Yeah, last year. I mean, go look at last year's numbers. I mean, it's like a 1.
It's close to the lowest EPA per play from a quarterback in the last 5 years, if not.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a 0.5.
Is it the worst?
Yeah. So our scale is 0 to 10 here. Yeah. I mean, 1 to 99 essentially, 1 to 9.9, but nobody's getting a 10 here.
Okay. not in today's economy. Okay. So you are expecting a small step up from a 0.5 last year performance wise to a 1.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
maybe I'm being too bullish. Shit.
Well, and this is and again, it's relative to the rest of the league. Like there's not many lower ones. Like the only really
there was so much rookie garbage from Bryce Young last year. I just have to assume it's not that bad. It's not going to be as bad. I don't think realistically you can start with that something that low. But
initially my because I don't have like hard numbers that I wanted to use for some of the OCs or that part of it. I had to kind of do that a little more by feel and vibes.
Okay.
But initially my Denver number rounded to 0.
That was my next question, which is, do you think this is going to be your lowest grade? You don't.
No,
don't. You think you're going to
when I did pure quarterback before I started making adjustments for play calling OC scheme, Denver, Minnesota, Las Vegas, they're kind of all in that same range.
Okay.
Giants, New England.
Talk to me about skill position group for Carolina. Where are you? 0 to 10.
That's my highest rated.
Really?
It's my highest. No, it's my highest rated on the offensive side.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, so we're at a 4.
Okay, that's higher than I'm at a 3.
Okay, you have a guy you can separate.
Okay,
this is probably the only one where it's like maybe I'm on the high end of this range, and this could come down if it just doesn't work out at all.
Okay,
but as far as Hubbard is fine. Like you have an okay middle of the road running back. Like I'm fine saying he's like a top 20 running back as far as the starters go. And you drafted a guy, you're hoping he's going to do something. You drafted another tight end, undersized a little, this Jatavian Sanders. He probably still, just everything I'm reading, it's like he's more of this smaller, faster receiving tight end. He might be, your de facto wide receiver 3 if he comes along nicely. And, there's some route running issues, and some of the stuff in the scouting was like, he's a little raw at times, but he was still a lot better than what a lot of teams got out of their tight end, especially Carolina at times. So between him, I can't even think of the name of the kid they drafted for the running back.
Jonathan Brooks.
Brooks, also from Texas. Yeah. Like if you get anything out of them, and yes, I know he had the bad injury and he has to come back. Thielen, and the rest of them behind Deontay Johnson, Leggett, you have Terrence Marshall, Mingo. Somebody's going to have to step up a little. But, I'm fine with this being below average. 4 is still below average.
Okay. So I'm at 3, which is to say I think it's bad. The skill position group. I think it's bad. I don't like. I'm not enthralled with any touch that Chuba Hubbard gets. Chuba Hubbard. I'm not really. I'm nervous about Deontay Johnson's availability score for me. Like
it leans a little into the next rating we'll go to, but the fact that they spent a lot of money on 2 guards.
Maybe
I think that makes Hubbard better. Because he's, like I said, he's probably like the 20th best running back.
Oh man, I'm not there. Okay, all right. So the problem that I see is I have trouble envisioning a breakout performance from Xavier Leggett in year 1, and I look at the fragility of Johnson, which is he's not that fragile. Like he's averaging like 13 games a season as a starter, so he's probably gonna miss 3 or 4. But I'm nervous if you take him out of the mix, this looks an awful lot like last year's group. like blink of an eye, your rookie doesn't really matter early, and your acquisition can't get on the field early. This is exactly the same problems you had last year with. Very easy to game plan for, no game breakers, and that I have to dock them for. So I'm at a 3, out of 4, but still no broad disagreement.
No, I think, like I said, and I spent a lot of time reading about this guy, but I'm going to say I wouldn't be surprised if Jatavian Sanders is like more of an asset to this offense than Xavier Leggett. And I think maybe I'm just smelling my own farts a little because I was like on a bunch of these young tight ends last summer and was right. So now I'm just like tight end hardo because I liked Green Bay's tight ends. I liked every one of these young tight ends. But I mean, teams are using them differently at this point where, hey, maybe you're not that strong of a run blocker, which some of these guys aren't. And guess what? You're a receiver now.
Okay.
So I'm
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not hot on Leggett either.
Okay. Talk to me about the O-line rating. This was tough because you got a bad mix of no continuity, but the guys you're replacing should be an improvement.
So they spent like $100 million on the offensive line. And I still gave it a 2.5.
I'm at a 2.5 also. Look at us. We agree.
So, and this is definitely one that can move up. This is one that could be a 5. This could be a middle of the pack offensive line. But yeah, you replaced guards. Like you're going to get good numbers from Hunt. Somebody mentioned this. I believe it was Brandon Thorne, who's big in offensive line stuff. The biggest thing about coming from Miami is that's such a friendly offense for an offensive lineman to look good in. That's a big thing. In some of these offenses where the ball comes up really quick, your pressure rates are going to look pretty good. And, when you're running a very unique, very strong run scheme with 2 to 3 good running backs who really make it look easy, your run block rates are going to look really good too. So I'm not down on these guys. I think this was the right move, spending this money on these offensive linemen. Get Lewis, get Robert Hunt, bring in a guy, move a guy into center, and then it's probably going to depend on what the new coaching staff does with this, the laggards. That we drafted you high, Aquanu. Like you need to play a lot better. Like both tackles need to play at a higher level. You need to get what they're probably middle of the pack performance out of your center, and then those guards have to earn their money. And then at that point, be like, hey, this is a top 18 offensive line, and that's probably their ceiling.
Okay. Well, I probably would have graded him worse than 2.5 last year on performance. So this is probably an upgrade.
No, this is for sure an upgrade from last year.
So let's mash. You're expecting the Carolina offense to be about 24th percentile. I'm expecting them to be about 26th percentile. So we agree. They are going to be in the ballpark of 1 standard deviation below the median, which means they're going to be scoring something like 17 points a game.
That would be awful nice if they could score that many.
Okay. What's your run stop grade for these guys?
6.
Ooh, nice. We agree. I'm at
average.
5.5, but that's okay. I don't really know what to make of this linebacking group, but I love the potential for kind of just in general building your run stop around a guy like Derek Brown. Should be good. I mean, in general, the front three, like that's nice matchups for all those guys. A'Shawn Robinson's a fine player. Shai Tuttle's a fine player.
Again,
these guys aren't good, but they're fine.
No. Again, moving back to what we'd said about how we were going to approach this, on a previous podcast, I said, once I get to defense, I'm not going to spend nearly as much time trying to sort out scheme and how this all is going to work out. I'm going to go a lot off ratings and a lot off availability and usage. Derek Brown is just like the rising tide that brings up everybody. And at the same time, Clowney is kind of a good run stopper if you go look at his numbers. So like the combination of those two is going to give you a good enough run number where this is, that's one of their highest grades.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I need to be a little bit more favorable here. You convinced me. I'm going to bump him up. I'm going to bump him up to 6.
We're going to be
okay. Pass rush. Where are you at there?
3.5.
Okay. Yeah. This is rough. They're going to get some good interior pressure, but this edge situation is dicey. It looks like you're going to be using a lot of Clowney or in situational stuff probably, and then we're expecting 3-4, right? And your right side pressure is coming from a player named DJ Wanum. Is that right? Did I get
Former
that right?
Viking, yes. Wanham brought in from Minnesota. Like that's where this number goes up. If Clowney, I'm projecting Clowney to be like 80% of last year because it's just like it was like his best year. So if Clowney can be better than that, if you get something out of Wanham, if Tuttle and Brown are really thriving because the edge pressure has been better, and at the same time, like it's weird. It's not weird. This makes total sense, and everyone knows it's like if J.C. Horn stays healthy, your pass rush is better.
I actually got to issue a correction and retraction. I didn't realize what a big proportion of my score comes from Wanham, who actually is a good player. I didn't watch enough Vikings last year, apparently, but I have him graded well.
I have him above average, but at the same time, it's going to be usage and who's getting the reps.
He's an upgrade. I mean, he grades almost the same as Brian Burns did for me last year. Was that just the system he was in? Or is he actually that good?
I'm not that high.
It's not. It's like my delta was virtually zero replacing those players when I went through my process. Maybe I'm missing something, or maybe it was all because he was in that this kind of system where you get exposure for you get credit for the
aggressive defense at times. So I don't know. I have him closer to like I never could say this guy. Clavin Chasen.
Okay, he was the third highest. Wanham was the third highest graded Viking defender last year after Hunter and Phillips.
Oh, that was a bad defense. Like I said, right. He's above average. He's above average. That's what I'm saying. If he integrates nicely into the system, Clowney plays well, this number can go up.
Okay.
And the defense.
So you said 3.5. You said 3.5
for pass rush. Yes.
All right. I was at 3. I'm at 3. There. I'm not going any higher. And I'm at 3 thanks to Wanham because I'm not expecting a career busting.
You're like trying to convince me to go up. I'm higher than you.
No. Okay. What's your coverage grade?
Coverage is a 4.
4. Okay. No disagreement there. Any room for improvement on coverage? Like
Horn
just availability for Horn.
Okay. Yeah, Horn's an absolute CB1. He's very good.
Okay.
Probably need a little more out of like the rest of your cornerbacks group, but good enough safeties.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Dane Jackson.
Close to average is where we're at.
Okay.
It just goes to prove like a lot of these positional groups, you can't be great with one great player. You have to have a good slot corner. You have to have another guy across from you. Otherwise, a really good corner, most teams can just avoid.
Okay, or so I gave them a 3 because I'm upweighting weak links, and Dane Jackson grades as a weak link to me. I think if you're up against a offense that has 2 good wide receivers, you're in deep trouble.
How about Troy Hill?
Troy Hill is fine, but not moving the needle.
No, I have both of them just like average.
Okay, so I'm at 40th percentile defense. You're at 45th percentile defense. So, but we agree there's upsides, particularly on the coverage if Horn ends up.
Now the meat special teams.
What's your special teams grade?
We're at a 6.
6? Oh, is that because they kick a lot of field goals because they can't score touchdowns?
Panero's okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna talk. We're gonna do this every time we're gonna talk special teams, and I'm gonna talk for like 5 seconds.
Any intangibles you want to throw into the mix?
Hacker's fine, Panero's fine, and then they actually have good. So they have a 6 because they actually have decent returners.
Okay. You want? I'm gonna give them I'm only giving them a 5 on intangibles. I treated intangibles personally like coaching combined with coaching, like not X's and O's, but like in-game decision making and that type of thing. I think is probably going to be fine, maybe good. I look at luck from last year and see like, hey, is some of my perception about this team colored because they were unlucky? Not really. So I'm at a 5 for them.
Forced turnovers was just pathetic. Like,
yeah,
that's where I think that's
was it literally because they just couldn't recover fumbles, or
some of it was fumble luck, but some of it was just they didn't force fumbles. They didn't They didn't intercept balls. They didn't tip a lot of balls. Like that'll help these defensive ratings a little bit. 4 for intangibles for me.
Okay.
Cooler on Canales than I think the general world is right now, but that's another one where I'm willing to jack that up pretty quickly if this offense, we see something like we saw in Arizona, and granted, there's a gulf between Kyler Murray and Bryce Young, but that was an untalented team, and they were kind of just taking what they could get. Not only untalented, but there were suspensions, there was injuries. Like that offense was missing all kinds of juice all over the place.
Okay. So as far as like last year historical kind of ranking, I'm at a 31st percentile overall. You're at 30th. So we're very close.
I was going to say the way I weighted it,
I don't broadly disagree.
I'm at a 3.025.
Yeah. So 30th percentile. That's it's not great, man. Do you want to know what that would be on average for? That means you're about 6.5 points below. But your power number would be like -6.5.
I have a -6. I converted it to power numbers, so I have a -6 on them right now.
Oh,
I mean, it's the worst team. We started with one of the worst teams. We all start with bad.
Okay.
It's certainly not going to be like, oh, this is a +3. Let's look at this.
I think that was that. What did you think of the process we went through to get to about the same number? Pretty good.
It was interesting. No, right? I like going back and I like going back and double checking like where I have certain players and why we're looking at certain numbers and making certain numbers.
Okay.
So yeah, 30th percentile team, that checks out.
Okay. Do you agree with me that the upside is relatively limited, or do you think that there's a chance for because like the big number that could move this is the QBOC? Like,
so I was going to say I have that weighted the heaviest out of any of the numbers that we just went to. The QBOC number, it's 35% of my total price.
Okay.
So if Bryce Young takes a 40% step forward and Canales calls a good offense, and we're seeing it's a big improvement in the offensive line. Hubbard is a plus player. Legette's and the new tight end. Everyone's contributing, and this is a team that's able to get into the 20s on the regular offensively. Then boom, we're cooking with gas, and this could be what's our ceiling? -4?
Yeah, probably.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like it would help. This number could jump up a bit if you get decent quarterback play based on basically the coaching change, but the ceiling is pretty low.
Okay. All right. We're on the same page.
Like the range, but at the same time, the floor is kind of, they're not going to get, I don't know. Like what scenario are they getting much worse than this? And they're just as bad as last year. I don't think the floor is very far below their feet.
Well, the floor is literally,
they're standing on their tippy toes.
Well, the floor is literally like we're pulling the ripcord here, and
oh yeah, we're
going for the number one overall.
Yeah,
is that really who's going first overall? You think? No.
Go look at Mox. It's pretty good. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth because of everything.
Because he's not very good.
He's good.
Okay. All right.
They're going to lose North Dakota State, but he's still pretty good.
All right. Let's look at their schedule. There's a lot of pluses. That's the first thing I noticed.
So yeah, if you look at this, and if you're listening to this in podcast form,
good Lord.
Like Drew mentioned, we'll post. I'm going to post these from our Twitter account later on today. So you can check it out at Deep Dive Pod on Twitter. We'll have them in the Discord as well. But
I'll put the high res ones in the Discord.
It is wild. Yeah, they are not. This is an improved. This is an improved team. This is a team that likely wins 3 to 4 more games than last year, and they are not favored in a single game right now.
That's right. There's a lot of coin flips. Their implied wins is 6.5.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. The division's getting a little tougher, but at the same time, New Orleans isn't that good. Tampa Bay is maybe a bit of a question mark. You're getting Chicago early on. the end of the schedule isn't great.
No,
if you do want to bet this over, you want them to get their, I think it was 4.5, 5. If you want them to get their win total, I think you might need to be within a game by the time they hit the bye.
I think so too.
And so they had the international game in New York at the international game, not at New York. That's
in Munich.
In Munich versus the Giants. Very winnable international game. But yeah, after the bye, Kansas City, Tampa, Philly, Dallas, Arizona might be good by then. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Both of those road games in division to close the season out. You could definitely end the season on a pretty big slide where, hey, this team was drafting 8th, and suddenly they are drafting maybe 2nd or 1st overall if the first half of the season doesn't go well.
Yeah, Sam notes getting Casey after the bye is a kick in the dick. I'll disagree, Sam.
No,
that's a big number of points, and it's a pretty advantageous spot, so I don't mind.
I don't think Canales cares about covering.
No, maybe. But it's still like if there's any game that Casey's going to sleepwalk into, it's that one, right? Casey, wait till you see Casey's schedule around this time of year. They have a lot of other things on their mind. Plus that could drift. That could be a big number. But I agree with you. Your point, like if you're betting the Panthers win total over, you need them to have just a magnificent October and early November, and then maybe you get there. I think. It is not a hard schedule.
No.
In general, in terms of opponents, in terms of sequencing, you have a number of small rest disadvantages, no major ones. You have a couple of travel disadvantages, but they're not massive. The fact that you don't get the Giants at home, that probably is a game you would be favored in if you were at home for that, but it is neutral, so you don't get any kind of home field bump, which is, that's a small disadvantage for you, I guess.
Who do you think the Germans will cheer for? Feels like the Giants are a much better known team, just internationally.
For sure. People will remember the Brady Giants Super Bowls.
Yeah, those are big games. I feel like it's going to be. I don't know if it's like, oh man, this is like home field advantage for New York and Munich, but it'll be.
Yeah, I feel like what do you call it? Dable engenders some third, what's the land in Germany called?
Das Land?
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Who did the Black Forest?
Sure, he's got some Black Forest vibes. Thank you. He's got some Black Forest vibes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it, man. I don't see this team taking a step forward, and I could see that if it's not going by the bye, then it's time to figure out, kick the tires on some of the players down the roster, maybe.
Yeah, we don't traditionally do like predictions. Like I have this is my record prediction for this team because that's boring. Everyone does it. They're all going to be wrong anyway. It doesn't matter. But I like to think about the ranges, and I think the overarching kind of agreement we have on this team is their range isn't very big. There's not a bunch of things that can go so right that this team wins like 8 or 9 games.
Yeah, this is a team that I'm probably not going to watch much. I'll tell you that much.
They win between 4 and 6 games a lot of the time.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep moving. I ultimately I don't think I'm going to be betting or watching many Carolina Panthers games in this season unless something dramatically changes about the state of the quarterback play. And
betting the Kansas City game.
I guess what will you be this is kind of closing thoughts, and then let's move on. Is there something you're going to be looking for either in performance, tape, data to tell you what type of upgrade, if any, you should actually solidify for Bryce Young?
I think if just like Canales is smart enough to put together the offense that works.
Okay.
If he's not, hey, this is my offense, and if he can't run it, we're drafting someone. And I know maybe the onus isn't on them to win a lot of games this year, but this is his first time in the big time. Like, hey, I'm calling plays. I'm the head coach. Everything's on me. I still want to look good. I want to look good doing it. I don't want to come out and fall on my face and be the asshole who blames a 20-year-old kid for that sort of thing. although that's done quite a bit. So I think if he's putting together an offensive game plan where Bryce looks comfortable, Bryce is getting easy stuff, and making all these other new pieces look like they've been here for a year or two. If it looks a little smoother, even in losses, just if the offense doesn't look so disjointed and forcing so many balls to Adam Thielen, and that's your only offense, then I'll be happy to move them up a little and start to consider them as an underdog bet.
Okay. The reason I asked you that is because I had a really tough time putting my finger on, like, if there was if you were sitting down as the coach and you were like, these are the problems we got to fix. Like, I don't even know where you start with, with last year's tape, right? Like, it's not like, it's like if you try that, do that same thought experiment with Sam Howell, you're like, in 5 seconds, you're like, got to get him to get the ball out of his hand quicker, right? You just got to have him anticipate pressure a little bit better, and maybe your performance upticks a little bit, right? Like that, and maybe like I think the answers were there for Baker. The answers might have been there for Geno, right? Like the stuff that you needed to kind of just have him take a step forward to be a more effective quarterback. Like it was just a little bit more of a solvable problem. I just don't know what to do, because the numbers in general are so bad, but then at face value, there's nothing that's just like, aha, like, gotta fix that. And then you get a big step forward.
The fix is like grow 3 inches, get an above average arm strength, and be better at, progressing through your reads faster and making better decisions. So yeah, I'm not hopeful.
Okay. Well, Canales gets a massive bump in everybody's book. And actually, you know what? Like, there's been people who have made bull cases for the Panthers through the context of Canales Coach of the Year, right? Like, how many wins do the Panthers have to have for Canales to get Coach of the Year?
What, 8?
You don't think they have to?
I think it's less about the. I think it's definitely less about the wins and more about fixing Bryce. Like, even if they're like 6-11, but Bryce has like 4,500 yards, and the offense is, they're losing games where they're competitive more often than not. That makes it. I think that's more the, the perception that you'd want to see around somebody to get him a bunch of votes.
Okay,
but I mean, still winning helps.
All right. Do you want to play the music again, or just clap my hands?
Good call. No, play the music again. I'm going to write this down.
Okay.
52 minutes, 30 seconds. Just because, and again, if you're watching this live, or if you're listening, goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow. There'll be another podcast tomorrow. If you're watching live,
stick around.
Yeah, should I do the outro? Nah, fuck the outro. Do 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 do. Part 2 with the remix.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. We move up one slot in the NFC South to talk about a team that actually I'm kind of excited to talk about. Because
this was a weird one. Digging into this
storm,
was weird.
There's a storm brewing, man. There's a tropical depression swirling around in the Gulf.
Thinking about our friends. We're thinking about our friends in Houston at the same time. Getting a lot of water. Did you see that?
We're talking. We're going to the Big Easy.
Whataburger app.
Yeah, Whataburger app to find out if you have power. I usually find out if I have power a different way, but that's fine. The destination is not Houston. It is New Orleans. Another famously throttled by hurricanes in our lifetime. But no, there's a storm brewing in the Big Easy, and there is changes are coming. I gotta think, because I do not believe that the Saints will have much to say as they look back on their campaign this year in a positive sense, and that's a problem because this is what, year 3 for Dennis Allen? Are we up to 3? We are, right? Is this his 3rd year already?
Yeah, I
He's
believe
such
so.
a forgettable presence. It's just really tough for me to keep track of all this. This is his 3rd year, and the improvements that were expected after the departure of Sean Payton and the handing over of the franchise direction, they just haven't really manifest, and it's going to get stale. It's going to feel like there's pressure, and lo and behold, who finds himself at the center of the storm again? It's in a similar boat as he always is, Derek Carr. Yeah, what's your temperature on the Saints? How warm is the water, Andy?
My only pushback to that, and I am sick to my fucking stomach defending Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, or anyone involved.
You
in
should
the
be.
BDC. But they did just try to continue the Sean Payton offense, the Sean Payton game plan.
Yeah.
And turns out you need Sean Payton for that. Also, Drew Brees would help.
You think?
I'm glad they went. I'm glad they went and just said, let's pick an offensive coordinator from one of the good teams with a good offense and a good scheme and try that out. That's like that may be the only saving grace that figures this team out. And we see, above average results compared to what we got. This is a team that almost made the playoffs, man. I have a quote. I wrote this down. This is from, if anyone wants some more reading, Clev TA's preview book is free. Just go to his Twitter and find it. You can download it from his site. He had a very similar take as what I do for the Saints. The last sentence in his 2024 outlook: the Saints will try to suck you in, but I won't fall for it this year. Like I bet on the Saints several times to win the division, the Saints to make the playoffs. I had some Saints futures that were close, but man, yeah, it was a rough hang, this team last year. And yeah, there were some injuries, and the defense had some issues, and maybe the running game wasn't exactly what I hoped it to be, but I'm cautiously optimistic about it. It's funny how I'm like pumping the brakes in the last podcast about Dave Canales, but I'm like, what about Clint Kubiak? So he's come from some places, Minnesota, Sanford. Like he's been in some places where we've seen offenses that were workable. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm ready to pull the ripcord on that pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider me old-fashioned. I don't love a guy whose last 3 stops lasted 1 year. Right? That's not ideal.
Again, we're like high on, Dave Canales might be the savior as he bounces around, but Clint Kubiak,
sure,
who's been getting better jobs, or obviously there was a regime change in Minnesota. Minnesota had the regime change.
Yeah. He's kind of slid backwards from offensive coordinator to passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach to passing game coordinator. Now we've elevated him all the way back up to offensive coordinator. And I mean, I don't know. If you could tell me what Pete Carmichael did, and that there's going to be a big,
did he exist?
Did he even exist? Then there's going to be a big difference, and it's a big surprise, and there's going to be some new wrinkles, and they're going to utilize their one strength, which is their skill position group, effectively this year. Then no, listen. Yeah, I mean, I'm more just inclined to look at the overall team and just identify just between age and holes. It's like, yikes. And there are kind of the perfect DNA of don't want to be weak here. If you got this, don't want that. If you got this, and the compounding force multipliers to the bad look apparent on paper for the Saints, which has me thinking that if everybody is in agreement that this is an average or a slightly below average team, maybe they're wrong, and that there could be a downside here that is a lot lower floor, and this could be a clean start here for GM and coach for all that matters, because it's not like Mickey Loomis is blameless in all this. Like his management of the salary cap has in large part contributed to the place the Saints find themselves, and some of his draft picks, which have just wildly missed, have kind of contributed to this. So this is an interesting one, and
this roster is rough in certain spots, but at the same time, I feel like Kubiak is in a better spot than probably Canales starting out. Say what you want about Derek Carr, he's a perfectly serviceable middle of the pack quarterback who is fine. And Kamara's on the wrong side of, whatever age we can't even say 30 anymore for running backs. Like running backs, you're on the wrong side of like 26 now. That aging curve is quick nowadays. And, they've had a lot of turnover on wide receiver. It's not as strong of a room as it could have, should have, would have been in years past. The offensive line has some big, nasty turnover. There's a lot of problems with this offense, but I still think he's in probably a better spot. It's still not an enviable job based on everything I just said. So I'm benefit of the doubting him, just because of where he came from and what they did in San Francisco. One of the articles I read, I like to do this when I'm trying to figure out some quotes or hopefully some quotes from one of these new coaches. I just type in their name and click the news part on Google, and then I just open like the first 10 articles, and 5 of them are exactly the same. But somebody had a couple quotes about just how quarterback friendly that system in San Francisco is. I mean, anyone who's not a strong Purdy believer that he's like an MVP level quarterback like he looks, that kind of checks out. I mean, it's a lot of motion pre and post snap, a lot of attacking the middle of the field. I'm trying to find this quote now. Outside zones, just everything's quarterback friendly. Probably the best way it's the best way to get the most out of any quarterback, but it sounds pretty good for a spot where you have a quarterback whose ceiling probably goes closer to like a top 12 guy at that point, if all goes well. You need to get a lot out of a below average skill position group, I think. And your offensive line might suck ass. So
that's the big problem.
I think this offense has a pretty wide range for me as far as like, Kubiak's in over his head, and their wide receiver 3 is a guy I don't really know. Kamara's old, Carr's old, nothing's working, the offensive line's broke. Or hey, he was able to institute a good system here that they haven't had for a few years and get a lot out of these guys. And a lot of these guys were, they rate out poorly if you look at their overall ratings or just any of the stats. And maybe a lot of that came from being in a shitty system under Pete Carmichael. So I'm willing to give this a wider range. That said, I'm not super hopeful.
Okay. A little bit more post-mortem for them on 2023. They were 7-9-1 against the spread. They were an under team, 6-11 to the under. Yeah. They had some success early with wins against Tennessee and Carolina, but those were very narrow wins. And if you had a sniffing suspicion that Tennessee and Carolina stunk, then you were a little ready for the bottom to fall out for the Saints. Now, it fell out in weird fashion as they covered a 1.5 point road spread in Green Bay. However, lost in just how. And then the next week out, hosted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and got crunched as 3.5 point favorites. And at that point, it was like, okay, they are fake. This team can't do anything. They blanked the Patriots, and then the rest of their season was kind of a lost mess of mostly losing. How many games did they get out of Derek Carr in the end? It was, sorry, I didn't have that up in front of me. He started all 17 games. There were rumors all year long
Don't you
that he was dealing
remember
with
that? It
injuries.
was like every third game. It's like, no way
Yeah.
he plays. No way he
No
plays.
way.
It's just-
Nah, he can't play. No.
that was
yeah.
like that was the theme for last year. Remember Herbert?
Yeah.
Like, oh, Herbert can't play.
Yeah. They
And
kept
eventually
playing.
Herbert didn't play.
Right. He didn't finish all those games, though, as Winston saw action in 7 games. Taysom Hill saw action in 16 games. He was, of course, a tight end as well, but he managed 11 pass attempts. Go figure. And 81 rush attempts. How about that? Actually, he was a very effective player for them.
You know what? You know what he is, Drew?
He's a Swiss Army knife.
He's dangerous with the ball in his hands.
Dangerous with the ball in his hands. He is. That's true. But yeah, I think like overall, like Carr was pretty bad, but not so bad that he like was screaming to be replaced. I think he hit basically the Mendoza line for EPA per play. He was just barely positive. Actually, he was fairly positive, but it was like 16th best in the NFL. So
that's what I'm saying. He is your median quarterback.
Yeah.
And there were a few. Somebody points out the last game Atlanta probably boosted his numbers a little, but
here was the problem, Andy.
Having a median quarterback in a shitty system, that's where I think like there's a little higher ceiling than we maybe.
So here's the problem. Their schedule was super pudding, soft, easy garbage.
It's easy again, though. It's still going to be
okay.
Like bottom 3.
That's okay. When you are putting soft
Drew.
garbage schedule and you do what they did, which was underperform by most metrics, and I know that they were a little hair unlucky, but you look over the results and like, yeah, no, this is about right. This is what this team should have been. There's no specific games you point to outside of the Green Bay game, and you're like, nah, they should have won that game, but they fucked it up. And I think in general, finishing strong with 4 wins out of 5, against the likes of Carolina, the Giants, and then Tampa, which was a weird one, and then Atlanta, which was a gimme. Like, okay, you win 4 out of 5, and you coach gets to keep his job. Like, okay, like fine, whatever. It was not a team that I will remember fondly in any way, and I think in general, it's setting up an opportunity for them to come into this season fairly overrated. And I'm saying that because I've already done my numbers. I'm looking at them, and I'm like, what? Huh? Like people think this is close to an average team. I'm not there. And I guess I don't know. This is one where I'm gonna have to take a stand, and we'll wait till the schedule to talk about exactly how to do that. But yeah, I don't think the Saints are any good, and I think the people who have been just kind of making the joke about the consequences of the way they've handled their roster and their cap situation, like they've finally kind of given up making those jokes, and I think this is the year it probably does manifest.
Yeah.
With that, what did you think of their offseason? Did you like how they utilized?
I feel like I talked enough about the Kubiak. I talked enough about the Kubiak hire. Like I liked it because it's better than what they had. As far as the rest of it goes, like Michael Thomas, I guess, and somebody brought him up because I don't think he's caught on anywhere yet. I think he's just a free agent still. There was a lot of rumors going around. I mean, even mid-season before he, just hung it up forever, maybe that his ankle, his foot, whatever it was just, I believe dust was the terminology was used. Like he might just not play ever again. They drafted a tackle again. They've drafted a couple offensive linemen over the past few years now. They haven't got what they wanted out of Penning. Fuaga, although one of the better run blocking tackles in the world. That checks out. Like if he plays well, that's a big plus because maybe you just got your left tackle for the next 10 years. Chase Young, Willie Gay, good moves, but honestly, I think your defense was your strength. It is. I have their defense ranked way better than their offense right now. So I would have put more probably into this offensive line, considering Ramczyk just straight up may not play. I don't think that's like going out on a limb.
No.
And, I just said it'd be exciting if Fuaga was good, but you have Penning, you have a rookie, you lost, who's, I can't even think of his name right now.
What position?
Andrews Pete that went to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Like, there's been a lot of turnover in the offensive line, so that sucks. So not a good offseason outside of maybe, hopefully, best case for the offseason is like Kubiak works out, Fuaga is a stud. Otherwise, there wasn't a lot to be excited about. They do have the lesser St. Brown. They have Equiminius St. Brown. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought they had a lot of needs and they had no ability to address them outside of the clear and obvious. They needed a tackle in the draft and they got one. So good job. But there are still lots of weaknesses across this roster, as far as I can tell you. And it was a little funny. They used some of their small available resource on Chase Young. That felt like a little bit of a, does he have a starting role even with this team? Why are we, what?
I know, and it's exciting to get a good player anytime, but like I said, that was already a strength. And I know Cam Jordan, long in the tooth, but like your defensive, I was fine with most of what's happening up there. Granderson's fine. You got decent secondary pieces. Again, some of them getting a little older, but I would have put more into the offense for sure. Taysom Hill, you got to get Taysom Hill the ball every down. Maybe that's the solution here. So, I'm down on the offseason. I think it was a negative.
Yeah.
Chase Young's best ball might be behind him.
Yeah, that's sad, but possible.
Replacing Cam Jordan because his best ball is behind him with a younger guy whose best ball is behind him, maybe good.
Kind of similar situation with Demario Davis and Willie Gay, honestly. I don't know if Willie Gay is expected to kind of take over that long-term role for Demario Davis, but I really Demario Davis was, again, outstanding last year. Somehow this guy has been around. He was a third round pick in 2012, Demario Davis, and he still performs at an all-pro level. He was a second team all-pro last year for the fourth consecutive year, Andy. This guy is 35. I do not understand it. But I think the end is probably going to surprise him and surprise everyone, I would guess, unless he's just found the fountain of youth and tapped into it. But that's a different conversation. I think
some of the guys complement each other's weaknesses. They're hoping to get more out of Breesy, for sure. And his run stop isn't great. Whereas Willie Gay is a good run stop guy. Hey, maybe we get a linebacker and who can help out with that. The weaknesses complement each other, I guess, but at the same time, it's still it feels like a very weak link system because of the age, the injury history, and the age of some of these defenders. I still have it as a good defense. I think this has the capability of being a good defense. Not great, but good. At the same time, they have a low floor if things go shit.
Interesting. So I'm cooler on the defense than you, it sounds like. But again, most of my coolness comes from just expecting the aging curve to manifest at some point. God damn, Demario Davis somehow had his best season last year.
That's what I'm saying. Go look at this. I spent much more time trying to figure out this defense. I don't know if I came up with any answers. They had really good EPA numbers defensively. On paper, it looks good. It's what was wrong with this team then?
Well, they played nobody. They played the opposing quarterback schedule they played was
that was kind of one of the main takeaways. Was again going back to the easy schedule, but they have a super easy schedule again this year.
Yeah. So last year they played Tannehill, Bryce Young, Jordan Love in week 3, early in the season. Mayfield, Mac Jones. Early in the season, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, who they conceded 31 points to. Gardner Minshew, probably. Justin Fields,
week was it?
Week 8.
Yeah. Richardson was gone by then.
Fields probably week 9. Yeah, I don't remember, but like the names and the only elite quarterback they played all season was Matt Stafford week 16.
I believe it turned out to be the easiest schedule if you go back.
Yeah, no, but like specifically from the standpoint of quarterbacks faced. Like they
it was Tyson Bagent.
It was Tyson Bagent. That's right. Bagent threw 4 picks and they didn't cover.
I forgot about the Bagent days. We had some 20. We need to do a whole podcast just on the weirdness of 2023.
That came
Bagent times.
I remember laying on the Saints and being so mad.
Tommy DeVito times.
I don't know how I forgot that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So let's go through their. I mean, there's not much to say about their offseason. I didn't think they nibbled around the edges and they drafted potentially a long-term fix at the tackle position, but still lots of holes. Where are you on quarterback OC? And it sounds like we are not in agreement because I am not as high on the potential upgrade from Carmichael to Kubiak.
What's your number? 4.5.
Okay. That's
and
not
Derek
that much.
Carr's carrying. No, he's carrying a lot of water. Again, like I said, he's probably a middle of the pack quarterback. Willing to keep them a little below average on this, under the 50th percentile, because Kubiak has to show it to me first. But at the same time, last year, even with a middle of the pack quarterback, it would have been lower than that with Carmichael. So 4.5 for my offensive coordinator / quarterback / scheme number on this one.
Okay. Where I'm at 3.5, but I've always been low on Mr. Carr. Probably to my own detriment, honestly. But
I factored Kubiak coaching indoors as well.
Okay, interesting.
That's an intangible.
Okay, so yeah, maybe I'm a little low. I'm only at 3.5 there. But
I encourage you to look into your heart and accept Derek Carr as a
average,
as a 50th percentile QB.
All right, fine. I'll upgrade a bit. Skill position group. Where are you at?
4, same as Carolina.
What? We got a big old disagreement. Skill position group?
Yeah.
Oh, we are not on the same page there.
No, because you just didn't. You failed to take Taysom into account.
Okay, what did I fail? What did I miss? Oh, Taysom.
Actually, I don't think it's that bad. It's below average for sure. But I kind of like Shaheed.
I think Olave and Shaheed are a very good combo.
I like 1-2. From there, it's not great. Kamara, you're still gonna get. I think you can get the most out of him using the kind of offense that Kubiak's gonna implement. So I'm fine with a 4 here. Are you higher?
Way higher.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have the drop off.
Okay.
A.T. Perry, like the drop off from. He's going to be an outside guy. Like A.T. Perry is one of your starting 3 wide receivers, and the age of Kamara has kept me from putting this above like a 4, 4.5. 4. I'm at a 4.
Wow.
What about A.T. Perry?
I'm at a 7. So I'm at a 7 for the skill position.
Big disagree. I was wondering what our first big one would be.
I think. Again, like for me, coming up with a skill position group number was
tricky.
So for me, it was mostly about targets, and it was about dividing up target share.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have 2 guys like Shaheed and
funny
Olave,
that I thought you were going to be lower.
Yeah. If you 2 guys like Shaheed and Olave, and I'm giving those 2 guys like 70% of the target share for passing attack, I kind of don't care what the rest of that room looks like. And I know maybe it is top heavy, like Perry, EQSB, Bud Means, Cedric Wilson Jr. not really moving. None of those guys move the needle for me. But I have a decent number on Juwan Johnson. I have a decent number still expected on Alvin Kamara. And so basically everyone I'm giving target share to is a plus, with Olave and Shaheed, plus with room to grow. because of their age. So I'm high on these guys, but I'm low on quarterback, so we're kind of offsetting each other.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you should be doing this, but it's all connected. So I do. Like, I'm taking away from like Kamara's effectiveness based on the offensive line.
Okay.
I'm taking away from everything based on how low I have this offensive line rated. But yeah, I'm gonna highlight that one. I'm gonna dig in a little because maybe I need to upgrade my tight ends. I got 3 good ones. I like Foster Moreau, maybe.
Okay. Foster Moreau. Let me see. I don't even know if I gave him any target share.
Sorry, Saints. Oh, he'll play.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, those are 2 fine pass catching tight ends. Yeah. Okay. So where are you on online? Let's take our medicine, Saints backers and fans. What's the number?
It's a 3.
It's a 3. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's higher than Carolina somehow.
I'm lower.
Maybe I should be even lower on this.
Yeah, I'm lower because I struggle to give a rookie tackle a grade that is above average. It's just so rare. And you may have a rookie tackle and a tackle that we know is bad on your starting 5. And you have like I kind of had to you went I'm going to hurt my skill position group by accounting for the fact that the run blocking sucks. I got to hurt the whole offense by really dragging down the O line. So I'm at a 2 for these guys. I would say
my number has Ramcheck 50-50. Like
I'm at much lower than that.
If we get to camp, because I read a bunch of read a bunch of articles and quotes, and it sounds, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but if he's at camp, like that matters. But if he doesn't, like you're right, I'm wrong. I need to lower this.
Okay, interesting. So you're at 40th percentile offense. Here's the funny thing. You're at 40th percentile offense. I'm at 47th. And I'm the one who kind of came into this discussion thinking these guys were overrated and they were a bet against. So how did we get here? All right. Interesting.
I don't know.
So
I think
you're including this on this offense.
Of the 8 grade, and some of them are vibes. Like, how are you going to make a coaching intangibles number that's strongly based on, qualitative stuff or quantitative
Well, you
stuff?
look at the decision making of Dennis Allen
you can look at decision
you're
making.
Not impressed.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, but skill position has been tough because he said all you can do is look at like target share and projections. We talked about this. We're going to look at fantasy numbers, and the Shaheed's a bit of a fantasy darling. At the same time, looking at the offense as a whole, I struggle with a bad offensive line.
Okay.
All right, I highlighted that one. I'm willing to take it up. I think we're going to be disagreeing on defense as well.
Okay, where are you at on run stop for these guys?
Run stop 6.5.
Ooh, that's good. Okay. I'm at 5.
It was a good defense last year. This is where I'm going to struggle with some of these good defenses. Like you said, hey, it was probably a good defense on paper because they played shitty teams. And I shouldn't anchor so hard to that. But like we looked at, there wasn't like a massive turnover. They probably, if anything, improved as far as the roster goes defensively. So I'm not willing to downgrade it just based off defense isn't sticky yet. Like, truthfully, if you look at like where they finished as far as a percentile defense, even adjusted for opponent, it's higher than this. So I'm downgrading their defense by giving them this. I'd like to hear why you went all the way down to like middle of the pack on this.
Because Joe Woods is the defensive coordinator now. Period.
Okay.
Like I kind of don't have any other I'm getting kind of I'm doing aging drop offs for a lot of their guys who matter, DeMario Davis included. But I'm assuming that this is more like the Green Bay type of scheme in terms of what you're going to see out there, and that running attacks are going to find it a little bit more conducive to success than what you had in years past. But Dennis Allen is a defensive guy. Maybe he gets his hands involved more. I mean, I didn't understand the Joe Woods hire. I just didn't get it. And
doesn't it feel like, like the Idzik thing where it's still just Dennis Allen's defense?
Probably.
I didn't. It's crazy. You brought this up. I didn't give it that much thought because that's where my head was at. It was like, well, it's a
I'm
Dennis
confusing
Allen
Joe
defense.
Woods, by the way. He was the Browns defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
my bad.
yeah, different guy, but still, I don't know if he's where the buck stops there on defensive scheme. So I didn't really factor that in a ton.
Yeah.
Something worth looking at. I'm going to look him up on the Google News. Sam brings up a point. Like he was bad. He moved. He's moved on for reasons as well.
Yeah, no, but I guess he's the incumbent. I didn't realize they kept him on from last year. I thought that he was a new hire, but I missed that somehow. All right, maybe I'm being too tough on him.
I don't have him on my chart as a new hire. I just had Kubiak.
Okay, well, I still am. I'm like, I will pay to see Demario Davis put up an even better year than he had last year. And then just in general, like there's not like I don't have especially hugely awesome grades on any of the interior guys here. Nathan Shepard, Kalen Saunders are both average for me. That's who are some of their key guys on the interior of the run defense last year? I'm trying to think.
Well, that's the thing. Breezy's young. Like if they get more out of him, Shepard, I don't have a good rating.
Shepard was good last year, actually. Saunders was fine last year. All these guys graded out well last year. Yeah.
Davis's grade is not going to stay there. I think I can agree with you on that.
I might have to rethink all my defensive grades here for the Saints. What was your pass rush?
I'm looking back to that tab. 7.
Wow, really?
Until I mean, I have a good grade on Granderson. I'm even giving like Cam Jordan a huge chunk down because of age. I feel like he's going to be effective because, like, just what do you do with a guy at that age? You use him sparingly, and when you need, and I think that can counteract some of the effects of being washed and dust. It's just like, hey, he's playing, X amount of snaps, and he's still effective. And Chase Young is good. Chase Young is very good. Like he's still underwhelmed compared to what we thought we would get, compared to what we were expecting when he was drafted. But it's still a good pass rush.
I got to reevaluate maybe how I came about with aging for a lot of these guys, because I think that's mostly why my numbers, because I did this in blind for the most part. This is not a lot of hands-on massaging qualitative stuff. I literally am just taking position.
We said that with defenses, it's hard. Like it's hard to guess. And I'm taking a wild stab at like Cam Jordan's. I'm saying he's going to play less and be more effective. That's maybe that doesn't jive.
Here's like the weird thing that I'm a little okay. Here's the other kind of key thing that I think is being missed a little bit, and we've said it a million fucking times. So sorry. Their DVOA last year for defense was bad relative to their EPA per play, which I think tells you that opponent adjustment was a big deal, right? And I think we didn't even talk about DVOA when we talked about what we were going to use. I'm leaning heavily into DVOA for defense just because I think EPA is a little bit misleading.
It's harder to use early in the season too, or preseason.
It's harder to use early in the season, and EPA is such a strong reflection of who did you play and when did you play them, right? Yeah. Like it really, really is more of a signal of who did you play than it is how good is your defense, from what I can tell you. And so, the Saints were the 15th best defense on DVOA. That is compared to the 5th best defense by EPA. And I weight defense more heavily towards what we saw at DVOA. I'm carrying forward, and I'm breaking it all down. And then I'm specifically docking Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, Nathan Shepard, Kalen Saunders, and Tyrann Mathieu, because these players are all past the peak on their aging curves in terms of expectation. Is that a reasonable explanation?
Reasonable.
So I think maybe that is kind of why I'm killing these guys more than anything else.
Granderson. Raul just says Granderson. I like Granderson. He's graded out well for a couple of years in a row now without
Carl Granderson. Yeah.
I can't. I always call him Curtis because of baseball player, but like he's rated out pretty well, and he's played heavily. So, God, he can't be that old. 96. What's that turn out to, like 27?
20. He's gonna be 28 this year.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is going to be if this offense doesn't work out, I'm still keen. I'm not going to be dissuaded from this. I'm still keen on this being an okay, above average defense, and I think this is going to be an ugly under team.
What's your coverage number?
6.
Okay, so you're at a 65th percentile defense. I gave them a 6 also for coverage, and I'm at a 50th percentile defense. So I'm kind of I need to rethink this, but I got back to an average team defensively, and I'm below average offensively.
I mean, the aging curve for sure is real. Seeing the numbers, and yes, the DVOA was low, but seeing some of the EPA and success rate numbers, even with Lattimore missing, they had some injuries to that secondary, bad ones. I mean, it was clustering. Couple of years now they've had that and still got decent numbers. I think this one could probably even go up. So 6 is fine.
Okay. Where are you on 3. Intangibles and where's your special teams number?
Kind of a bad kicker. Groupie's not good.
So where are you at?
Coaching intangibles.
What was your special teams number?
3.
Okay. I'm just using yours, by the way. I did not grade special teams. I'm just gonna coattail you.
I'm using it at such a small number.
I'm just gonna coattail you.
Coaching intangibles, same as Carolina, 4.
Okay, I'm 3 for them because I do not like the Dennis Allen in game decision making at all.
I thought about going lower, but I said I think, and again, we're in disagreement on this, but I think this defense can be good, and that's his forte. So I'm fine just letting him cook, and maybe he's an even better coach this year by being more hands-off in the offense. Because I guess I don't know what the relationship was when Carmichael was there, if he had to make more of those calls. So Carmichael sounded like a guy who didn't even want to be a coach. And yet he was like an OC for like 10 years somehow. For the same team. He's like the longest tenured coordinator. So I don't know. I'm willing to actually say nice things about Dennis Allen because I think he is a good defensive coordinator.
I love it.
I'm with you. That's
second goal.
That's why it's below.
Oh, you have over 2. You need a third goal from Tina.
Yeah, I'm pushing.
Right
I didn't actually have a 2. I had to make it synthetically. So I won my first bet of over 1.5 goals minus 195 or whatever it was. So yeah, 1 more would be great so I don't push. Otherwise, I actually am down. Looks like I'm down 23 cents at the moment.
You gotta get a.
I did it in my head. I didn't.
Yeah, you gotta get your spreadsheet cleaned up. Let's look at the Saints schedule. See if we can make sense of what to do with this information. Because actually, I didn't do the summary statement. You have the Saints as a 45th percentile team. I have them as a 46th percentile team.
It's funny how in the end it's close.
It comes back to
we had some pretty big disagreements.
Yeah, interesting. A 45th percentile team would be a.
I have 2.5.
Minus 2.5. Yeah.
2.5 below an average team.
Yeah.
Checks out. I'm fine with that.
Let's look at their schedule. 8 wins.
Get some minus signs in this one.
Couple 2 tree.
So the bonus is they get to play Carolina twice. They get a decent spot versus Tampa at home.
Yeah,
They don't.
We get Sean
Denver is at
Payton back
home.
in town on Thursday Night Football.
That's
Look at that.
It's fun-ish. It's kind of fun. I mean, it might be a bad game.
Terrible game. Just a dreadful game. Look at where I'm already complaining about the quality of football in the middle of October.
Yeah, they're gonna play. Both. Everyone plays the NFC East.
Yeah,
and like you say, we get the Giants. They don't have to go to Munich like the Carolina Panthers do. They get Washington. Those two teams back to back. There's some wins here, but it feels awful similar to last year.
It also feels awful slow starty.
Yeah, Dallas, Philly, Atlanta, KC is not great.
No.
1-4 feels
no.
Not only that, but like the easiest game, depending how you feel about Philly, I think that number might be a little off.
I do too.
I think I'd lay Philly on the road early in the season.
Sure, why not?
Field goal there, but your Atlanta games on the road, your Kansas City's games on the road, your Dallas, like 3 of the 4 tough games on the road to start the season. Could be a rough start. Last winless 20-1, Patrick says. Why is Dallas 6? I mean, we just said our
States
rating
are 2.5 point
2.5
worse than an average, and Dallas is definitely 2.5, 3 over.
3 better. That's home field. Throw it in. Maybe
field.
Dallas should even be a little bigger favorite.
Yeah.
I guess depends on Dak's walking boot and the rest of now that they totally retooled that roster, Jerry. What were they? They were all in the offseason, Dallas was.
Yeah, I mean, the real question is, Cooper Rush, can he cover 6? I wonder.
Asking who Dallas is running, but Dallas's running backs room, yeah. Rico Dowdle, Royce Freeman, getting some carries.
Are those the real names?
Rico is okay. Deuce Vaughn's with that team too.
Wow.
Snoop Connor.
Wow. All right. Wow. So the real issue here is you got to show up and really take care of business week 1 for your home fans.
Got to have that one.
Because it gets nasty then, where you could be staring at 1-4 and season's over before you've even gotten to your bye. And that Tampa Bay game, I don't think you're favored in that if you're 1-4 personally. And Tampa Bay is, for whatever it's worth, has had your number in these early season matchups recently. Yeah, I mean, I think realistically this could get bad. I don't know that I'm feeling super excited about that Atlanta 4.5 point favorites in that spot personally, but certainly the Dallas, Philly, KC games are all gnarly.
Yeah, there's so many coin flips, and again, if the defense plays at a decent enough level, you win 2/3 of those coin flip games, and you lose to the teams who have really good defenses, or in Green Bay, Kansas City cases, just offenses that you're not going to be able to stop, especially at Green Bay. Monday Night Football at Green Bay late in the season, cold. You're a dome team. Week 9 snowflake. I mean, it's an outdoor game.
It's an outdoor game.
Game in November, even if it is.
I basically automated all the snowflakes where if you're playing 25 degrees, a delta of 25 degrees or more compared to your normal, then you get a snowflake. And because the Saints play
half a snowflake.
Because the Saints play.
Should we do a snowflake rating system? Like Green Bay should be a triple snowflake.
Triple snowflake on Green Bay, yeah. It's a night game too. I guess I gotta check my travel calc.
December 23rd in
because that seems weird, right? It seems weird that there would be that big of a minus for travel for New Orleans at all this season, specifically in that Giants game. Yeah, what the hell? I mean, in the Washington game, like I don't understand that. No, that's a positive number. Okay, something must have busted on my copy paste because the Washington should be positive.
I thought Washington was coming off a bye there. We'll have to clean that one up.
Washington is not coming off of a bye. There's something wrong with my travel numbers on this one.
We'll revisit.
Oh, I see what's going on here. Oh, I fucked
Carry
up.
the two.
I fucked up on rest and travel. They're backwards. That's what's going on.
I do like the cotton candy colors for rest. That's good vibes there.
Yeah, my rest and travel are backwards.
So the biggest disagreements we had were, the skill position players, which, if you're high on them, Drew, but you're not super pumped about Kubiak or the offensive line or the coaching in general, maybe that doesn't make as big of a difference to the difference in how good this team can play. And yeah, if this defense, if you're more correct than I'm hoping on the aging curve stuff, this does feel like a bigger spread of possible outcomes for the season, because like you probably just take your medicine. Dallas, Philly, Atlanta, Kansas City, Green Bay, like you just get the shit kicked out of you there. Such is life. But with all the coin flip games, if the defense does take a meaningful step back, the aging matters, and Kubiak doesn't make this offense hum at all, you can finish behind Carolina, I suppose.
Yeah, that's not crazy.
I mean, let's look at these coin flip games.
Well, I just got to ask you, like, at what point, like, how bad does it have to get before they fire DA?
I think if you get to the bye and you've got like 3 wins, you consider it. So, like you said, Tampa Bay is that might be a pick 'em when they get there. Who knows? Denver. I'm not chalking that up to like, hey, maybe Bo Nix figures it out and Denver thromps them there. Like,
well, I think Champagne's going to have a little something up his sleeve.
You probably beat Carolina, you beat Denver, but like, you got to go to Carolina if you're not as good as you think. Maybe that's a little closer. Atlanta at home, that could be a pretty good offense. Cleveland at home, that could be a pretty good team. The Chargers is a weird one because they don't actually have any wide receivers.
Right.
It's still a travel out to the West Coast, though. Double back-to-back. So that's the shitty part about that. One of the worst teams you're going to play is in the back of a back-to-back outdoors at Carolina after going out to the West Coast, coming back to the Big Easy, and then going up to Carolina again. So, I mean, if things get shitty there and you're going into the bye with like 2 wins, you probably think about it.
Yeah.
Like, you got to win both Carolina games. You got to split with Atlanta. You've probably got to take care of the Chargers.
You got to take care of Denver for sure.
You got to beat Denver. And you got to be competitive in a couple of those games against the better teams. If you're a fan, you're hoping none of that happens.
Yeah, this just feels like 6-11 to me. And honestly, like I'm more kind of curious about what do they like if we're expecting the aging curve to affect a lot of these key defensive players this year. Well, what about next year? Right? Like, are they all of a sudden immediately backfilling a lot of talent? What is the long-term situation with Derek Carr? Like, is Derek Carr playing for a contract this year, or is he a lame duck? Like, the fact that the quarterback and the coach are potentially lame ducks is sort of what has my antenna up that this could be a bad deal. I'm
not even sure. Like, what's your big? Let's just fast forward this team. Let's say they go like 7-10, retain everybody because it wasn't that bad.
They don't even have a potential out on Carr until 2026. Oof.
Yeah, I was gonna say his contract.
Holy shit!
What's like your, let's say you're drafted 12th, 10th to 12th. Like, what's your biggest need? I think you're probably just drafting offensive line again, or backfilling with the best pass rusher.
Best pass rusher. Yeah,
it's probably that's the spot where you're not feeling bad about taking the best pass rusher.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you could definitely afford to try to upgrade at coverage. I'm not like dying in love with the
college corner.
Everyone. Basically, I'm not dying in love with anyone after Lattimore here, really. I mean, Adebo's fine, but he's a better CB2. Yeah, I don't know.
I have a good rating. I have a good rating on Debo and obviously Honey Badger, but that's another age guy where it's like, hey,
jeez, man, I can't
crazy.
believe that they got another year of Carr. So Carr, this is they're getting 2 more seasons of Derek Carr, average quarterback play up there, down there.
Yeah,
this is happening. Wow.
Alante Taylor,
$50 million dead cap hit if they cut him after this season.
Oh, that's why I can't find him. I'm looking at Dallas's depth chart. Alante Taylor. Yeah.
CCB3.
Decent rating. He's like your nickel.
Well,
I have to look. I kind of want to go on PFF, see where he lined up. I feel like he might have lined up at a couple different places.
Well, what's his name? Lattimore missed a bunch of games. I
think he missed 8.
Yeah, he only played 10 games. And so Taylor started 13 games, but he must have been nickel a bunch.
I don't think I'm getting my third goal here. Frickin' blue, sky blue, white, whatever, Abba Celeste.
There's no big chance coming?
No big chance. We got 4 minutes at a time. We're already through 1 minute of it. I had the right ref too, I think. Regardless, yeah, I'm with you. 7-win team. But I think the bottom could fall out.
Okay. Well, I'm just excited that I managed to confuse Joe Woods and Joe Barry for the 900th time on this podcast. I think it has happened a lot.
You had me stopped. When I don't interject, I'm thinking. Because it's early. Like you said, that's still the preseason for us.
Yeah, this is preseason.
I think we found a nice. I like this. I like this style. This was fun.
Do you think with the easy-ish schedule and the bad-ish division? Is there a potential that and some good vets is there a potential that the Saints are this year's Bucks, where they will just win a bad division by attrition and just by not by being a little underrated? Are we whiffing on this?
I mean, again, looking at the schedule, if things go right,
yeah.
Why
if they catch,
there's no 12-win season, but 9 to 10 is within the realm of possibility. That's your upper range, and that
Cooper. I just want to know: is there a chance you wake up in week 5 and the Saints are 4-0? They beaten Cooper Rush. They took care of Philly at home. And Atlanta was wildly overrated, and they beat Atlanta. They have 2 wins in division, and they're 4-0. Is there any world where
that's where I don't think the price is big enough to bet them to win this division or to be excited about this team, because it is a parlay of the Saints defense isn't too old. Clint Kubiak instantly gets it and improves this offense, and the Falcons offense just never gets there. I think the Falcons defense has some big liabilities as well, but you're betting against the Falcons offense and on everything bad we said about the Saints. It feels like the price just isn't quite there. You want to bet? I think if you want to bet the Saints,
plus 420 to win the South.
If you want to bet the Saints to win the South, maybe you do it in week 5 after they start 2-3, 1-4, and you've seen steps. Hey, this team has gotten better. They're just playing tough teams.
I kind of think though that Dallas and Philly, I have them both kind of in my the market's too hot on them category, which means if they flip the coin, get it land heads in those spots, then all of a sudden this is.
You would need to win 2 coin flips, though. I still think 2 and 3 is kind of a most likely. 2 and 3 after 5, and then you look at it, and again at that point you can judge oh shit, Atlanta's real. Or Baker's doing it again. That's the other thing too. We didn't even mention the Bucks. The Bucks Bucks feel like a middling team that could be another hurdle to jump as well.
Yeah. I'm not really getting a lot of appetite to bet the NFC South.
That's fine. I think that's perfectly fine. I think somebody was looking at like last winless team. Patrick, last winless team.
If they lose to the Panthers week 1, then I've heard of stupider things.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
No, a couple ugly teams that we went over, such as life. Oof. We'll get into some better ones tomorrow. Normal schedule will be back on. We'll do Mondays and Wednesdays from here on out. Bucks and Falcons tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Same YouTube channel. Hit the thumbs up if you were with us. Drew, any closing thoughts before I go to the bar?
The corrected schedule matrices for the 2 teams we talked about tonight, with the travel and the rest in the right columns and the right color coordinating, is going on the Deep Dive Discord as we speak.
Perfect. What game is the Drew Brees retirement jersey retire? Remember when they gave Drew Brees that laminated piece of paper?
I will never forget it.
For breaking, it was like the all-time yardage record or something. It was a big record, and they just
have they announced it yet?
I don't know.
The funniest thing was it was a very they literally had somebody at ESPN printed on their mobile printer from the truck and brought it out to him.
What are we thinking here, Raul? Are we thinking the refs are mad that he grabbed his dick last time out? I don't bet the cards markets. Has to be the Denver game. You should do it during the Denver game because
definitely. Is it prime time?
Sean Payton's
in the house.
It's
definitely the Denver game. That's the one.
Plus,
it's
Denver at home because then Drew would be safe from any lightning strikes.
I forgot about that.
Remember he died?
I don't see any news on that, but it's going to happen, right?
I'm sure. He was a pretty good quarterback. I would retire his number.
I'm gonna just for housekeeping, I'm gonna put the
was it that
team,
ref that took the?
I'm gonna put the
bribe?
team schedule matrices in the deep dive channel on the Discord. How's that sound?
I feel like Tay made a channel. I'll message.
Well, there's a deep dive pod Discord channel, and there's a deep dive.
Put
pod
them in there.
channel.
Put them in there. Doesn't matter. Do what you want.
All right.
They'll find them. People will find them. All right. If you aren't
in the
Discord,
in there.
I know I saw somebody ask about how to get in the Discord. There's a link on our Twitter at Deep Dive Pod. You go there. I think it's pinned. That should be able to get you in there. If you have trouble, just DM me. My DMs are open. I'll help you out. It's a lot of good, smart guys in there talking about a lot of sports now. It used to just be NFL. Now there's like 30 channels. It is grown into its own thing. A lot of good, smart cats. So appreciate you guys. We'll catch you tomorrow night. Enjoy your Tuesday evening. Hopefully the weather is gorgeous. The beers are cold, and we'll talk about some better teams tomorrow.
I love it.
And the outro.
Is there a way to get like all of the notifications on Discord to go away at one click? Because I hadn't been on there forever, and it's just an absolute shit show.
There it is. I'm gonna have to find it. Are you on desktop?
Good Lord, I want